only date a single mother, a single mom, if. But before I reveal to you what is this if, let me tell you why I'm making this video on single mother. Because you see, guys, when it comes about the dynamics of dating, game, whatever you want to call it, this category of the single mom definitely is there. It is heavily present. And so for the simple reason that a single mom, she's a mom, but she's also single. And probably she's single also because she's a mom. A single mom, it is a category of women who are single and available, but for most of the pool of men who happen to be single, this category, they are oftentimes the least desirable dating option for them, as same, I would say, into the same category as older women. And now, man, I'm telling you how it is. Most of men, they think this way. They do consider that a single mother, that a woman who already had a kids with a previous relationship, she is basically done. She is basically over because she opened a chapter that she basically didn't finish with the men that she began with. And the fact that she's separated from the men, from the dad of her kids, shows that she is in herself a failure. So most of men see it as a red flag, and they don't want to be the outsider who gonna provide for the woman and her kids. That is not easy. And to be honest, most of men, they think this way. And for my lady out there also who are watching the channel, you probably already know that, but I really want to confirm that this is the mindset of most of men. This is what most of men think and do perceive single mother. And basically they do have the same type of thinking toward, like I said, older women. They do consider this category of women as not being into their prime, as being already consumed and used in a way. I don't like this term, but really this is just the way they see it. Now, this is not my mindset. This is not how I see it. And for the simple reason, because to me, I consider that when it comes about a single mother, even though she's a single mother, she can still be a valuable woman. She can still be pretty. She can still have a good personality, and she can still have basically quality, right? In life, shit happened. An accident can happen, right? It can definitely occur. So that's the way I see it. But what I want to tell you is that the way I see it, it is absolutely not the norm. But, however, what I've been seeing, what I've been witnesses, is that a single mother, she is not in a position of abundance. She do not have the upper hand. And so for many reasons, first of all, most likely, she's not going to be that young or not really in her prime years. And if she is in her prime years, the fact that, again, she already have a kids, that she already opened up a chapter with a man, and that it failed, for most men mind, like I said, it is seen as being a failure. And so automatically, it will be a minuses for that woman. So as a result, what's naturally happening, or what is the natural procedure, when you have a weaknesses, when you have a minuses, when you have something missing, well, the natural things to do in that case, it is to not have too much expectation, right? It is to not be too delusional, not to be too entitled, because eventually even all of these character are bad, right? They're pretty bad in any context and situation. But When you've got something valuable, when you've got something that do have a strength, that do have that is good, basically, eventually, you can apply entitlement, being delusional, having expectation, and high standards. But when you're a single mom, and for the simple reason that I explained to you, I am not the one who am making the rule, right? If most of men are thinking and are perceiving this about a single mom, if it is the way that they see a single mom for most of them, then it means that there's a reality. It is just like a freaking market, man, right? If everyone wants to buy a certain things and there's a limited quantity of it, of course the price is gonna be high. That's exactly how it works, right? So that's the reality. But the problem here, man, is that most of single mother, they are not really humble. They are not really considering this. And in fact, a lot of them are delusional. Like I said, they are entitled, and they do have high standards. Even though, like I said, in terms of romantic, in terms of dating and so on, they do have a disability against a woman who is single but with no kids. This is just the way it is. So, it is actually very crazy that a single mom like that, would have actually high expectation, high standard, and so on. And now I'm not saying that she shouldn't have any standard at all, right? And due to the fact that she's a single mom, she should basically accept any man, any trash guy, into her life or to form a relationship and so on, no? But what I'm saying here is that due to her condition and due to the reality of the market, it is completely abnormal to be entitled like that, to have a high standard and so on. But to me, the heart of the problem with single mother is that for most of single mom, once they are single mom, all they care about pretty much it is to find someone who's gonna accept the kids and her. And that basically what they want is that they want a man who's gonna be able to take care, not necessarily always financially, right? But who's gonna be able to be here for her kids and for her. But think from a man perspective. When a man is on a hunt to date a woman, what does he want? He wants to date a woman, to be with a woman. Again, he do not want to be an outsider and get into a family that it is not his, and basically put up a lot of attention to the kids and the woman. The reason is goal. In order to date a woman, it is to basically be with that woman. It is to form a relationship, form a bond with that woman. But with a single mother, most of single mom, they think about the interest of their child first. And I'm not blaming them. Of course, this is also the right mindset to have, right? Because they want to make sure, that their kids gonna be safe. But this is where the problem is, because the choice that they made or whatever happened into their life, the reality is that most men, they don't want to handle that, they don't want to be the one who's going to fix basically the mistake that is coming from her or her previous husband or whatever. They just don't want to be part of that, And the mindset of the single mom, is that they want to hook a man who's going to be there, like I said, for their child and for them. But so as a result, they're not looking for a man who is. They're almost looking for anybody who's going to be able to be here. So as a result, they act from a state of desperation and not from a state of abundance, not from a state of, just a regular, natural state of being with a man, for the man, and in order, to be cool, to form something good together. No, they act into a state of desperation, and they do not see a man as a man. They just see a man from what it can bring for her and her child, and especially her child, right? Basically, the child, it is the first component in here. And since most single mom do operate that way, and by the way, it is funny, right? Because a lot of them do have high standards, But in reality, also, a lot of them do not have standard very much because they're going to be ready to pick any guy, as long that they can find a guy who can be here, and that it is nothing of value. And to me, this is the number one reason why you should not date a single mother, why you should not mess and be with a single mother, unless she would have the strength and the emotional intelligence, of basically understanding that she's in a position where she messed something, but she know herself well enough, and she do have the capacity to just be complete with herself, and that she do have enough to provide on every level to her children, but she also want to share the greatness that she is with a man. Then in that case, and only if this situation happened, then you can date a single mom. And that's exactly what I would do. But the reality, guys, is that it's probably never going to happen. It's probably never going to happen. And I think this is why, like I said, most of men stay away or don't want to do anything with a single mom, unless they are lacking option, unless they do not really have a choice, or they did not really create a choice for themselves. And that's why they end up dating a single mom. Or, gonna keep it real, also, a lot of men, they would eventually mess with a single mom because they know that this is easier with them to get sex, to get a lay. And as a result, they perceived single mom, since they operate into a state of desperation, they think that this is easier to get into the bed with them. This is where they put them, which is not very rewarding and great for them, right? But again, I think all of this happened due to the emotional state of a single mom. And to me, I just think that a woman who do have a lack, who do have a minus, who do have something that is not perfectly flawless, it is fine, as long as she's on it, as long as she do not want to throw her lack, and that she do not operate out of desperation toward another man. Because when she do that, no man gonna be interested to them, And like I said, if there were more single mom who were complete as an individual, and they were looking for a man to genuinely form a bond, to genuinely add up to the greatness that they already create, that they already cook, then yes, in that case, to me, that would be totally okay to date a single mom. And guess what, man? This is my mindset, right? This is the way I think. I know I am the minority, but I'm going to keep real to you and telling you that even though, there were more single mother like that, because I think there's almost none who would be like what I say. But I'm pretty sure that even though they were more like that, I don't really think that necessarily more men would be willing to date them, because, yeah, that's just ingrained into them that as long as she's a single mom, it's done, it's over. A page of a book has been already opened and written, and then no, they don't want to do anything with that. They want to create a new chapter with a woman who is fresh of family, who do not have kids. And another reason where I see that eventually, you can pass on the fact that she's a single mom and she do have a certain personality, is that if you happen to click with the kids, and that I think this is something that can also occur, that can happen, right? That let's say you are dating a certain woman who already have a kids, and you happen to bond, to click with that kids. And then eventually, to me, I would think that this would be valuable to eventually also date the single mom, because you have a good connection, you have a good relationship with the kids. But again, also, let's face it, how many percent of probability that is going to happen? It is also very low. And this is for all of this reason, like I said, that a single mom, a single woman will never really be a good option. And also let me know what is your thought, what's your take on that. Have you ever dated a single mom yourself? Have you ever dealt with a single mother? What do you think about all of this dynamic as a man and as a woman also? If you happen to watch the channel also, let me know. And now that you know why you should only date a single woman what about only dating an older woman if? And guess what? I made a video about that you can watch somewhere here, where I explain to you in which precise situation you should date an older woman. And if you do like this video, of course, give it a like, consider subscribing as well. And until next time, I'll definitely catch you up soon later.